Hello, Lord Immolation. Okay, so I've taken a little bit of time. I saw that you kind of were acting like you wanted a little bit of time. You have some other things you want to do. But anyway, so I'm going to respond to this video, but not the entire video. Really, just this part of saying that you are a realist and I am an idealist. I reject that. Now, I basically reject a lot of the principles upon which that is stated, and I also reject sort of the terminology, because cognitive science-wise, I don't think the word real should mean that you believe your own intuitions are real. Realism should mean that you are looking to the world to tell you what's real. That's what's real. We go back to Platonic realism. That's not what it means, is it? It means you believe in these universals, these Platonic universals, or some more modernized version of them. So it's like just a gambit. It's, I believe this. That's what how things really are. So if you're a realist, then you believe that too. You know, it's like Ayn Rand. She didn't draw a bunch of principles from objectivity and call them objectivism. She had her own romantic philosophy, and she called it objective. Why? Because it's true. She's just asserting it's true. It's not that it's drawn from principles of some deep objective truth. No, it's just what she thinks, and it's objectively true. You know, or I could say that Santa Claus is real. Realists believe in Santa Claus. Therefore, you're not realist if you don't believe. It's like you can't take your idea that you think is true and name it trueness. You don't believe in truth unless you believe in what I just said was true. Yeah, that's not going to work for me. Okay, on the other hand, I'm not just going to say, well, that's what the term means. Fine, we have a technical term here. I don't think that realism should mean opposite of reality. I think realism should be, you know, if this object is real or not, you know, that's the word real. That's what realism should have something to do with questions like that. But okay, there is a technical term, realism, in philosophy, and that's the one by which you're signing yourself as realist. So let's go to an authority, if we can, for a basis of what realism is. So I'm going to go to Wikipedia. Just kidding, because the Wikipedia article on realism sucks ass. It's, besides even taking into account any skeptical or relativistic kinds of epistemology, even as a matter of just trying to represent realism, it really sucks. So instead, of course, we'll go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the entry on realism. You'll see in there, first of all, there is definitely enough room for me to argue against realism from this somewhat, you know, I don't know. I want to refactor how we think about realism, reality, and the terms. I think there's room for that there because there really is a history. I mean, the reason that it would have been called realism at any point was the idea that that's what's real. The term real still had its own meaning, and then realism goes in another direction, especially when, to be a realist, you have to accept something turns out to be false. But anyway, here's what it says. Here's what the Stanford Encyclopedia says. In general, where the distinctive objects of a subject matter are A, B, C, and the distinctive properties are is F, is G, is H, and so on, realism about that subject matter will typically take the form of a claim like the following. And then they title this generic realism. A, B, and C, and so on exist. And the fact that they exist and have properties such as Fness, G-ness, and H-ness is, apart from mundane empirical dependencies of the sort sometimes encountered in everyday life, independent of anyone's beliefs, linguistic practices, conceptual schemes, and so on. Now, most people that argue against realism are going to argue against that A, B, and C exist, or that the having properties Fness are independent of anyone's beliefs, you know, and so on, conceptual schemas. I think relativity throws a big wrench in this kind of a definition. What is Fness? Well, Fness is going to be, you know, the quality of is F for an object A, or B, or C. You know, in my physics, that as far as I understand it, is going to be a relationship. So it has a property of a relationship. Okay. Now, I'm a skeptic, and I have subjectivist epistemology. We are the sort of people that generally have argued against realism, as I just described. And as I said, it's usually on existence or the independence. That's not the kind of skepticism I'm offering. I call my skepticism relativistic skepticism. And one point of it is that I'm not arguing that things don't exist. I think they do exist. Okay, but I define it differently. And there's uncertainty in the definitions. but not in the mere fact of existence. Because, see, we can make approximations. And the fact is, existence is just the most rough approximation. You're saying that something's there, but you're not taking any stand on its actual qualities or the nature of it or the shape of it or anything else, just that it's there. So how can we do that? Well, I believe that all existence is defined starting with myself. I exist. Okay, I exist because there's a stream of perceptions, and I am defined as whatever it is that is having those experiences, that is having those perceptions. I am whatever that is. I don't have to know what it is to say that, well, whatever it is, for the things that I do know are there, whatever it is, that's going to define I. So the perceptions exist as well, because they're part of the stream of perceptions. So they exist as well. Now, if I'm looking at an apple, and it's a bundle of perceptions that have come to me, I define the object as whatever is behind, whatever explains, whatever gets into the nature of this phenomena, whatever explains those perceptions, whatever's behind them. Okay, so again, I don't know what the apple is in itself, but I do know there's a bundle of perceptions. They follow a shape of an apple, and whatever it is behind that, behind the generation, behind that, exists and is the apple. Now, it might be a software library. If we're in the matrix, then it's a software library. Fine. The apple still exists, and it's a piece of software code. All right? And I think I have a very strong argument on that. The independence is more difficult because, you see, with relativity, as I said, we know that a property like is F will really be a relationship. If the thing is blue, that's really a relationship between the light that struck that thing and the observer that is going to absorb those photons. So I have a little bit more difficulty in arguing for independence, but the fact is I do believe these things are independent of us because I believe in evolution. I'm a materialist and I believe in evolution, and so I believe that there was a time where things had relationships, in other words, properties, prior to the mind existing. So that is a temporal independence because those things did exist prior to being sensed. Now, the weakness in my argument here is that I believe for something to exist for you, it has to interact with you. So if something is never going to interact with you, I don't think you can say that it exists. But for all the things that have interacted with us, I can say they have a history. So they existed before that interaction. And that is the kind of independence that I will rely upon to claim that, in fact, I am a realist. Now, if you don't want to accept that, if you think that I have to believe in certainty, or I have to believe that existence, a claim of existence, is a claim of correspondence to a particular shape of the outside world, so I can't just say, hey, the apple is something, but maybe it's a dream, maybe it's a software library, maybe it's this physical object like we model. If you think I have to do this, fine, then I guess I don't get to be a realist. But you can't call me an idealist either, because I'm not saying that we're in a world just of ideas. Other than we as humans are. We have just the ideas, but the ideas are coming from perceptions. And it seems to me that it has to do with relationships, that we can detect relations between things. So I feel that relationships are perceptible in the way that classical thinkers think that objects are perceptible. I think we can perceive blue, but that it's a relationship. It's not, like Aristotle thought, a quality of the object. No, there's other physical qualities that cause that relationship maybe to be a certain way. If you look really close, though, you never get back to, well, there's qualities. All the qualities break down into systems and therefore relationships that make those qualities emerge. So I think I should be considered a realist. But if that's too much of a stretch for people, well, you can't call me an idealist, okay? And if you're going to insist I can't be a realist, then I think you're saying that realism is the promotion of ideals and treating them as reality, which is really not what it's meant to mean in the long run. It's not really what is meant to be discussed by keeping it real or trying to make your philosophy real. So anyway, that's my thoughts on those subjects. Cheers.